Am I the asshole for locking myself in my office when we have company? I 36F took in my mother during the pandemic after some medical issues. I never made her move out after, it works for us. She has her own bedroom and bathroom. We share other spaces and I work from home most of the time so I can look after her. My stepdad died about a decade ago and she was lonely. It made sense for us. As mentioned, I work from home most of the time and a lot of times I'm in some kind of Teams meeting or call. Yes, even those that could be emails, but that's not important. So I don't really have time for chit-chat during office hours. My mom's sister, aka my aunt, tends to drop by unannounced to visit with my mom. Which I don't really mind, but she had a tendency to step into my office without knocking while I'm working and start talking to me about her neighbor's sister's kid who did blah blah blah. I've more than once explained to her that I'm working and or I'm on a call and I can't really chat right now. But she just keeps talking like nothing happened. Today she actually announced to my mom she was coming over. I reminded my mom to tell her I'm working and on calls and can't be disturbed, and my mom agreed she would tell her not to bother me. But just to be safe I locked my office door so she couldn't walk in. Despite my mom telling her, she came upstairs and tried to open the door. When it didn't open she started knocking and calling out, "Hello, it's me, open up." I didn't respond at first as I was on a call with a client, but she kept banging on the door so loudly I ended up having to put the client on hold. I told her without opening the door I was on a call and could not talk right now, and my aunt left in a huff. Now she's bombarding my mom with texts about how rude I was for locking myself in my office knowing I was having company. So am I the asshole? Update. Go to dinner for a few hours, return to Reddit only to find out this has exploded. First of all, thank you all for your confirmation that this isn't on me. I did not think I was the asshole, but there's always that hint of doubt where you're like, maybe I should have poked my head out and said hello real quick, but the truth was it was a busy day today and I just hadn't had the time. Now for the update. After I finished my workday, I took my mom out for dinner and we discussed the matter. She hadn't responded to any of her sisters, my aunt's, texts because she is fully on my side. I know people are asking why my mom didn't stop her. My mom isn't very mobile anymore and my aunt simply got up from her seat and took off upstairs despite my mom's warning. We discussed it over dinner and we agreed that my aunt simply is no longer welcome during office hours, since it's the only way to stop this behavior. Either she can pick up my mom to go to a coffee shop and talk, come after office hours, or come over on the one day I work in office. My aunt seems pretty pissy about it, calling their brother, my uncle, to complain also, but he texted me earlier saying he told her how wrong she was and apparently her husband had also told her she was wrong, so now she's currently stomping her feet at home because everybody is saying she's wrong. Delightful woman she is. Remind me to one day post the story about her Disneyland trip. Anyways, too long did not read. Mom and I decided she's no longer welcome at my house during office hours. Update to the update. This is the Cliff Notes version of the Disneyland story. She has twin boys, and for their birthday she booked a trip to take them and one of their friends out to Disneyland. The friend ended up canceling last minute and told me if I paid the friend's share I could go. Reasonable enough, I figured why not. I was 16 at the time. This story is like 20 years old. I'm European, so this is Disneyland Paris I'm talking about. And I'm not from France, so this is an international trip. This becomes important later. My cousins are maybe 10-ish at this point. So anyways, we're in the parks and she has been a menace all trip already, but I'm dealing with it. It's the last day, about 5 hours before we have to take our train back home. International traveling train with customs etc. Like a plane would be, only less boarding time. One of my cousins wants to go on the rock and roll roller coaster, the other one doesn't. The line is like 5 minutes or less, so my aunt tells me to go with him and she'll wait at the exit with our bags. So I leave my bag containing my phone, my ID, my money, everything in her care. 10 minutes later me and my cousin get out of the ride, and she is gone. So I start looking around, cannot find her. After half an hour of waiting, maybe they went to the bathroom or something, still nothing. We go check the bathrooms, neighboring rides, the works, no aunt. I have no phone on me to call her, and with us having to leave for the train in 4 hours I get nervous. I'm a 16-year-old with a 10-year-old at my hand and no money, no ID, no phone, nothing. So I decide to go to the lost kids department and explain my situation. They end up calling her through the park's intercom. Another hour goes by. No aunt. I remember my dad's phone number back home, so I use Disney's landline to call him. He tries calling her cell phone, my cell phone, no response whatsoever. At this point I have like an hour or less before the train leaves and I'm in hystericals because I can't board this train without money or ID, let alone with another minor. My cousin at this point, seeing my panic, is crying his eyes out, so I'm also dealing with a scared child. I'm barely an adult myself. My dad eventually tells me it makes no sense for him to drive out to Paris right now. To go back to our hotel he'll pay for another night and he'll come pick us up in the morning. So I take my cousin back to the hotel, explain the situation, and the receptionist hears me say my name and says, Oh sweetheart, I have a note for you. It's a note from my aunt. Gone to dinner, see you on the train. At this point I have half an hour to run to the station, hoping we'll still get through customs where she's supposed to be waiting. I make it with 15 minutes to spare. I'm out of breath and fuming. We end up making it through customs, God only knows how, and manage to get on the train literally as the doors close on us. I call my dad, explain the update, and he is also fuming at this point. To which my aunt turns to me and goes, I don't know why you're so mad. I left a note at the hotel and I brought you something to eat, and hands me a freaking dinner roll. I took my stuff, went to the dining car with my cousin who she also almost abandoned, and gave him the biggest slice of chocolat cake my budget could buy, and never came back to our seats to talk to her XD. Not the asshole. You didn't have company. Your mother did, and it was while you were working. There's nothing to apologize for. Of course not the asshole. Both your mom and aunt are being rude, irrational, and entitled. It's your space. Put your foot down and tell your mom that your aunt is not allowed to visit during working hours if she can't be respectful. To make it clear that your house is also your workplace, advise your aunt that she has two choices. The first option is to respect that you are not available and not to be disturbed during your work hours. The second option is that your aunt is not allowed in the house uninvited, and your mother is not allowed to invite her in during work hours. Not the asshole. People who do not work from home really don't understand what work from home means. It means we are working. I wouldn't walk onto your job site to talk to you, so you can't walk into my office to randomly talk to me. I may be projecting a little bit here. Not the asshole. Oof, time to send Auntie on a direct flight to Bloodland. Auntie, I've tried, multiple times, to subtly convey to you that you are disturbing me. As you can't or won't understand, and have now progressed to hassling my mom, please allow me to lay it out for you. Do not stop by unannounced, ever. When you are an invited guest in my home, do not attempt to communicate with me while my office door is closed. If you can't follow these simple rules, and refrain from complaining to mom about them, then you will not be welcomed in my home. My resolve is firm and should not be tested on this point. Maybe you should remind your mother that if you lose your job because of all of the interruptions, you won't be able to pay the rent or buy groceries. If you can't pay the rent, she will become homeless. Alternatively, if they miss each other so much, mom can move in with sister and you can have your privacy back. Am I the asshole if I return mail to sender? So my spouse has this friend who keeps having mail sent to our house. IDKY, he has a house, but yet he has all his mail sent here. For the first 3 months I didn't have an issue with it, but a few weeks ago he had something important sent to the house that he needed ASAP. He wanted my husband to bring it to him, but when my husband went out for drinks he forgot the letter. The next morning, a Saturday, this dude calls us over a dozen times at 6 a.m. Like my husband didn't answer the first time, so his friend just started calling again and again and again in a super passive-aggressive fashion. Eventually my spouse answered the call, grabbed the letter and went to bring it to his friend, like some servant. It was not a pleasant way to be woken up, and I told my spouse to tell his friend that we aren't the post office and that he can send his mail elsewhere. Hubby, who is incredibly too kind, thinks I'm overreacting. I dropped the issue, but today I found not one but 4 pieces of mail, including a new bank card and something thick and important looking from the Social Security office. I haven't told my spouse these letters arrived yet because I know he'll just deliver them and it'll continue the problem. I'm really tempted to just return the mail to sender. Would I be the asshole if I did? Caveat. The friend is not disabled and he does have a car and a job. Literally no reason that he can't go get a PO box. Honestly, this sounds like he's actively trying to prevent his address being associated with him and using yours instead. He is not a resident at your house, and nothing is being sent, care of, you with your permission. I wouldn't waste my time talking to my spouse any longer and would stop by the local post office and report this as mail fraud. This sounds like some seriously shady shit. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Not at this address, is truthful. The so-called friend needs to be bothered to do his own business. The SSA thing is available online for him. Having it mailed to an inaccurate address could be troublesome for anyone involved. Don't mess with the SSA. Hubby, who is incredibly too kind, thinks I'm overreacting. Not the asshole. Tell your hubby enough is enough. Call his friend and tell him to stop this shit, and yes, return to sender. It's not his house, it's yours, and your hubby's agreement to it is weird. This is whole fucking postal shenanigans is just weird. And if he is up to something dodgy, you don't want to be anywhere near that shit. Not the asshole. If he's having official mail sent to your address, that must mean it's registered as his address. Return it to sender ASAP and get it out of your life. Is trying to establish residency at your house? Tell him to get a P.O. box if he's trying to hide things from his wife, partner. Am I the asshole for sticking to the no kids rule and saying no to this request? My wedding is in 2 weeks. Earlier today, I got a call from my mom asking if my older brother could attend with his partner's 7-year-old daughter. For context, my fiancé and I sent out save the dates 7 months ago, and formal invitations 5 months ago. RSVPs were due 5 weeks before the wedding to allow enough time to finalize headcounts for food, seating, etc. When I spoke with my brother, he originally RSVP'd no, because his first child is due right around the time of our wedding. I told him I completely understood. He mentioned he might be able to make it later in the week, possibly bringing his partner's 7-year-old with him. They live across the country. Here's the issue. Our wedding has had a clearly communicated 21+ only policy for nearly a year. We've already had tough conversations with family, including my future in-laws, to reinforce that this applies across the board. No kids, no exceptions, even for newborns. My brother already RSVP'd no and now says he can make it. Now, my mom and sister are pressuring me to be more welcoming and let my brother bring the child. But my fiancé and I feel like our boundaries aren't being respected on what's supposed to be our day. We put this rule in place intentionally to give guests an adults-only atmosphere and to avoid exactly this kind of last-minute stress. To be fair, I understand how this could seem rigid or even unfair. My brother lives far away, and this might have been a rare chance for him to come, and I get that traveling with a 7-year-old complicates things. Letting them come might feel like a compassionate exception. But if we allow this one child after telling others, including close friends and immediate family, that no children are allowed, it undermines the rule we've held everyone to and could cause resentment or confusion. So, am I the asshole for sticking to the no kids rule and saying no to this request? Edit. Appreciate the feedback. Since my brother is going to lengths to attend, we'll try to figure something out, either babysitter at the venue or catch up with them after per day before wedding if possible. We're trying to maintain the rule while still involving my brother and make sure the children are taken care of. Sounds like his partner has some family coming to help if needed around the house while my brother and niece travel. Sounds like my brother's partner thinks this might be a little break to bond with the baby and allow my brother to visit, niece to meet everyone since we live so far away. We'll see how the cards fall from here. Unfortunately, the wedding is child-free, and regardless, he has already RSVP'd no and the final numbers have been accounted for. As much as I would have loved to have him there, this should have been sorted months ago. Not the asshole. Why does he want to bring the 7-year-old so bad? Even though 7 is old enough to behave, I wouldn't travel with a kid if I didn't need to personally. But yeah, I would stand firm on the boundary you set. You are not asking too much. A wedding with no other kids, and I'm assuming alcohol, really wouldn't be great for a 7-year-old anyway. Not the asshole. He waited until the last minute on purpose. I wouldn't be surprised if his entire plan was to make you feel guilty last minute to change your mind. He's had plenty of time. Not the asshole. I say this every single time this subject comes up. Making one single exception for anyone for any reason is not being kind to that person. It's punishing everyone who respected your boundaries for respecting your boundaries. Not the asshole, but I'm really nosy and kind of confused. So was his first child just born and he wants to leave while his newborn is 2 weeks old and his partner is still recovering? Regardless, if you make this exception, it's gonna really fuck things up with your in-laws if you had to have difficult conversations about it. On top of that, it's your wedding, you're allowed to have and keep boundaries. Not the asshole. He RSVP'd no, it's too late to add him, so the whole child dilemma doesn't even matter. Am I the asshole for eating most of her birthday cake? My wife, 32 female, and I, 35 male, were recently on vacation over the 4th of July, which also happens to be my wife's birthday. We had all the normal traditions for our family, including cake. We all had a piece day of, but almost nobody ate cake the entire rest of the trip. When the time came to return home, in-laws, mother-in-law made the cake, offered to send the whole thing with us because they didn't need all that and we will probably just throw it away. My wife hates food waste, so she brought it. The journey home was 2 days by car. It has since been 2 additional days since we got back. Each night after dinner, I've had a reasonably sized piece of the cake for dessert. I used to be a bigger guy, and while I have much better habits now, I still have a soft spot for baked goods. The cake was budgeted for, though, and I had been looking forward to eating a little. Well, today my wife saw that there was only 1 slice left and was irate, saying I was completely selfish and had eaten almost all of her cake. I told her the cake had been available to all for nearly a week, counting days it sat on the counter before we took it home with us, and that nobody had bothered to touch it but me. I did apologize after she finished explaining to me that it upset her, but I don't understand why it's such a big deal to begin with. The cake was right there. She never even had a bite. For additional context, in the past she has requested that certain foods be saved for her as leftovers, etc. I've obliged, only for that food to sit until it had become moldy and she claims she forgot it was in there. Oops. For someone who hates food waste, allegedly, I find this behavior doubly puzzling. Was I wrong here? Edit to answer some recurring questions. It isn't, nor has ever been a, my cake, or, your cake, situation in our family. It's just the cake, to be shared. There has never been an expectation beyond making sure the birthday person gets the first slice. After that, it's just a regular old cake. The courtesy Summer relaying is to simply ask if she wanted a slice while I am serving myself. In our home, this has never really been a consistent thing. It does happen, but it's not an expectation and doesn't happen every time. Desserts are just understood to be periodically available, and if you want some, it's there. Different rules for small children notwithstanding. Finally, we ate on the drive. IDK why people exclude those 2 days from when the cake was available. Obviously we didn't drive 48 hours straight without sustenance. And the first night we obviously had to park and rest somewhere. And besides that we were home for dinner on the second day as well. Update. I have decided to simply bake her the exact same cake, in a smaller tin just for her. It will be her cake and nobody else will touch it. If it gets wasted, so be it. I hate the waste but it's not worth the division. Update 2. The remade cake was much appreciated. She has yet to take a single bite. Not going to track progress. The cake was made as an apology, not to test the theory. This is the final update. Info. As you were helping yourself to a slice of her cake every night, were you also offering to get her a piece and she was declining? Or were you just eating her cake without a word said about it? Edit. Based on response, you are the asshole, mainly for not offering her cake while getting some for yourself. Also, thanks for the awards, whoever did that. Seriously? This fight is over week-old cake? It was time to toss that bad boy anyway. Info. Each night after dinner, I've had a reasonably sized piece of the cake for dessert. Sick. And where was your wife during this? Silently staring at you eating dessert, while she has nothing? You're not an asshole, but generally when I eat any of my husband's personal food, leftover takeout, something he's brought home from work, a special snack he either went out of his way to get or was given as a gift, that sort of thing, I make sure he knows I'm doing it before I dig in. It's mostly just me yelling, "Hey honey, I'm going to eat some of your teacher chocolates, okay?" across the apartment and making sure I get an okay back. 95% of the time he's fine with it, but I do occasionally get met with a, "Keep those grubby little mitts to yourself, wretch." Those are my cold tenders. The same way I wouldn't use his personal hair products or wear his favorite t-shirts without checking. Helping myself without his knowledge just feels presumptive. Not the asshole. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Not the asshole. I think your only fault here is, as someone who hates food waste myself, every time you went to get a piece of cake you should have announced it. "Honey, I'm cutting a slice of cake. Want me to cut you a slice too?" That way, if she says yes, you enjoy it together. If she says no, then it's on her for not partaking.